The following sample of The Darkness, an adult crime novel read by the author, is rated R and is intended for adults only. The Darkness by Michael J. Spoula. Chapter 1. Darkness Strikes. Father Miles Grimm removed his purple stole and hung it in the closet of the sacristy. He removed the white alb and hung that up as well. Normally, he forgot the sins of the people that came to him to celebrate the sacrament of penance right after they had finished confessing. He was sure that this was a special grace that God gave to all priests. Today was different because the man who chose to stay hidden behind the screen instead of confessing face to face had confessed to him that he had murdered someone, not recently, but in the past. The screen hid the man from view, but there was no way the screen could prevent the body odor of the man from permeating through to him. Father Miles began to breathe through his mouth. The man almost seemed proud of the killing, and described it in vivid, bloody detail to him. When he asked the penitent if he were sorry for the murder, he told him not only was he not sorry, he was going to do it again and again and again. It was at that point the man abruptly left the room, leaving the odor of evil, along with the description of his heinous act that Father Miles could not get out of his head. Miles sat in the confessional room another 15 minutes and heard two more routine confessions, including a woman accusing herself of adultery and a teenage boy confessing masturbation, the same sin in two forms. He dealt with these two sins compassionately, routinely, and swiftly, uttering the words of absolution for each of the poor sinners, and then he waited a few more minutes. At 8 o'clock, the hour for celebrating the sacrament came to an end, and it was time for him to lock up the church. He closed the closet door and turned and walked into the church. He went into the first pew, and as was his custom, he prayed for all of those that had come to him for sacramental forgiveness that day. He also prayed for the strange man who proudly proclaimed his guilt and did not want to wait around for forgiveness. Of course, the odorous man had not been sorry for his sin, so there would have been no way for Father Grimm to pronounce the words of absolution that would have welcomed even this man back into God's good graces. Father prayed hard for the man, praying not for his conversion, but that the man would not carry out his threats. The old priest was in a dilemma. Although there had been no sacramental confession, at least no absolution, he toyed with the idea of calling the police. But then, what would he say to them? Look for Mr. Stinky? I think he might be planning a murder. Then he realized that the man, as evil and as repugnant and unrepentant as he was, had come into the confessional and had spoken to him as a priest, so the conversation was therefore protected by both canon and civil law. Not even the Pope could compel him to reveal what was said in the confessional. He finished his time of prayer and walked to the side entrance. He turned off the lights, and now the only light was by the altar, where the red candle above the tabernacle proclaimed the presence of Christ. He turned and armed the alarm, and then opened the door and went out into the chill autumn night. He fumbled for his keys, found the one that he was looking for, and locked the church up. He was just turning around when the dart hit him in the neck. He felt a burning pain, and a moment later he fell to the ground. He could not move, and worse than that, he could not breathe. Panic started to set in, but he could not express it. His entire body was paralyzed. From the shadows, a big man came and looked down at him right in the face. The odor from the killer's body enveloped the dying priest, even though he could not smell it, and as consciousness left him, he saw the round face smile at him. After that, Miles answered the call to come home, and he moved towards the light. The man was big, 350 pounds if he were an ounce. He had no hair at all on his body. The bald head was bullet-shaped, and his teeth were a dentist's nightmare. He was very strong and moved with an agility that was surprising for a man of his great bulk. He reached into the dead priest's hand and snatched the keys from the man's fingers. The eyes of the dead cleric stared at the killer in mute protest. He opened the door of the church and stepped in. Quickly he typed in the code to disarm the alarm and dragged the cooling body into the church. He dragged Father Grimm's corpse to the confessional room. Then he went to the sacristy and pulled the alb and red stole off of their hangers and went to the confessional room, and he dressed the priest in his priestly attire. He dragged him to the chair and manhandled the priest into it. He adjusted the red stole so that it hung properly, and he smiled at his handiwork. So that there would be no mistake, he took the dart which he had shot into the neck of the priest and wrapped it into the fingers of the dead man around it. They would soon know that he had the power of death, and he would dispense it frequently and at will. Several blocks away, another tragedy was playing itself out. Sister Gwendolyn listened to the old lady's breathing sounds and knew that the cancer would soon claim the 94-year-old grandmother of 14. Angela was ready to die. She had made her peace with God and family, and there was a look of serenity on her face that belied her current circumstances. "Now, Angela, you're doing okay. You need to rest," Gwendolyn told her. The old lady squinted at the nun and whispered, "For a nun, you sure can lie pretty good. I know I ain't got long to go, and I sure ain't afraid." "Angela, okay, Angela. I believe you. Can I bring your children back in now?" "Yeah, send them in. But Christ, tell them to be a little more upbeat. This crying crap has got to stop." She was racked with coughing for a minute. Sister gave her a drink of water. The hospice nun smiled and packed her stethoscope in her bag. Then Sister Gwendolyn put on her coat and went out into the late autumn coolness. Her car was parked in her assigned place in the hospital parking lot. She really hated the spot that was assigned to her, as it was out of the way and the dark, lush growth of vegetation shielded it from view and made the spot feel very lonely at night. She turned and, leaving the security of the well-lit lobby, walked toward it. She sensed but did not see a presence in the area. There was an odor of unwashed body heavy in the air. She looked to the left and then felt a sting in her neck, and a moment later she collapsed. Chapter 2. Damn, I Hate Country Western Music. John Mikal was dreaming about Denise, his ex-wife. She was laughing at him, and he was getting angry. And then she started to sing, "Do, whack-a-doo, whack-a-doo, whack-a-doo." And the dream suddenly ended, and he popped his eyes open, losing the vision of his witch of an ex-wife, but still hearing the do-whack-a-doo. He turned his head and slammed his hand down hard on the musical alarm. He sat up, opened the door of the CD player, reached in, and removed the Roger Miller CD and flung it across the room. Two good things about losing Denise to divorce were, first, he did not have to listen to country music anymore, and second, he could get rid of all of those damn boxer shorts she insisted he wear, and he could go back to wearing his beloved tighty-whities. Those damn boxers rode up and became most uncomfortable at the most inconvenient of times, and he had taken great pleasure in throwing every colorful but uncomfortable pair into the trash the day after she left the apartment. He looked at the clock. Damn it! It was 10 after 5. He was late in making his call. He sat on the edge of the bed and called Lieutenant Bradford's cell phone. It rang once, and his boss immediately answered it. "John, you're late. I only ask two things of you, John. What are they?" His boss demanded in a stern voice. "Ted, I'm supposed to call you, my sponsor, before I take the first drink, and I'm to call you at 5 a.m. every morning to check in with you. Sorry I'm late. I overslept by 5 minutes." "Were you dreaming about drinking, John?" his boss asked, the voice taking on a gentler tone. "No, Ted, I was dreaming about her. Shit, she was laughing at me even in the dream." "Well, dreaming about her is to be expected. You and her were together for 15 years, and not all of those years were bad years, were they?" "Ted, they were some of the best years and some of the worst years I ever lived. The last two where my drinking dragged me down to the bottom were the worst. I can't blame her for leaving me, but I wish she had left me for another guy. But for another woman, hell, that's what pisses me off about the situation. I sometimes think that the other guys laugh at me behind my back. But you know, the program teaches me that I can't live in the past and hope to stay sober. So let her and her bull dyke have a very fucking happy life. And John, I appreciate all the help you've given me since I got out of rehab. Look, I got to get dressed and get to the 6 o'clock meeting. Buddy, you're never going to hear this from your sponsor again, but to hell with an AA meeting. I want you down here now. We got a couple of murders. Bad ones. Good people taken out in bizarre ways. And everyone downtown wants the goof that did these killings in jail no later than yesterday. So I need you down here sooner rather than later. We can have a private meeting in my office before I brief you on the case if you want to." "Cripes, Ted. This town has 2 murders an hour on some hot summer days. What the hell is different about these 2? John reached over and picked up his cigarettes. He pulled out one from the pack and stuck it in his mouth. He did not light it because he was trying to quit the filthy habit. "It's bad, John. 2 real good people were killed. You ain't gonna like it. Father Miles at Sacred Heart, you know, the good old natured priest, and just a couple blocks away, Sister Gwendolyn, you know, the one they featured in the paper a couple of weeks ago. She was killed too by the same guy. Looks like someone has declared open season on Catholic clergy." Chapter 3. The creature sleeps. Go towards the light and you will be safe. The creature slept, and while he slept the city was safe. He had arrived home in the wee hours of the morning, feeling pretty good about the night's work. 2 enemies had been taken down and sent to their God by his own hand. And he felt a strange peace as he watched the life flee from the sacks of bone and water that all humans were. He laughed aloud and robustly at the panic he saw in their faces as they tried to draw breath and couldn't. It filled his heart with joy as he saw their weak spirits leave their body. Afterward, he enjoyed posing them, and the act of posing the 2 stinking holier-than-thou bastards itself would confuse the profilers that they would certainly bring in to try and capture him. There was no message, rhyme, or reason why he posed the priest as he did. The priest was in the sin-forgiving business, so he thought he should be found in his uniform, while the woman who styled herself as an angel of mercy, he just thought it would be funny if they found her listening to a heartbeat that wasn't there because he had extinguished it. The thoughts just came to him after the act of murder. It was important to him, the act of killing and bringing the world back into balance was the be-all and end-all for him. Next time he would not rely on chemicals, even though he had a large supply of them. No, next time, and he could hardly wait, he would get his hands wet. But now the creature slept with the picture of his mother, her sallow face captured by the camera as he always remembered it, sullen, disapproving, especially of him, was on the nightstand beside him. And the city was safe as he snored, farted, and gurgled his way in dreamless sleep as the rest of the world lived in the light of day. This ends the free sample of The Darkness, an adult crime novel